Hi, Matthew. Um, I just want to start off by saying thank you for taking the time to attempt both prompts this week. Thank you for spending time with them. Thank you for getting them in on time. I appreciate it. Um, and let's dig right in. It's such a pleasure to get to know folks through their writing this first week. Just gives me little glimpses into who you are individually. So it's a pleasure to know you just a little bit after this. It was very clear to me, even just reading your first poem before you started describing your writing life in your second poem, that you have experience as a writer. And so it's a pleasure to be in this company with you. I love the details that you include in your first poem, the I Am From poem. I love how you took this and really made this yours. It's like you were able to use the format of the Mary Pfeiffer poem, but you really focused on the specifics of geography rather than all of the different details that Mary Pfeiffer uses in her poem. And I think that's great because I think it makes the poem yours. And it also just sort of tells me a little bit more about you and your writing style. So it's like you're zooming in on the geography and describing it as much as possible rather than zooming out and including as many details as possible about everything. Your second poem, My Writing. So this, I will say, this second poem feels more like notes towards a poem rather than an actual poem. I think just because it is in a longer prose style without line breaks, and because you're an author, or if you want to describe yourself as an aspiring author, that's fine. I'm just going to say author because I am a firm believer that if one writes, one is a writer. If one writes poems, one is a poet. Um, I'm not as interested in different levels of how to define that or the hierarchy in that. So, because you are an author, I imagine that you defer to prose writing. Um, After reading this, I'm really hoping that this class can help you organize some of those thoughts. Even if poetry isn't what you aspire to write, there's something about organizing ideas into a poem and learning that skill and learning that skill set and different techniques in doing that that then bleed in to other forms of writing. So I hope you find this helpful in some ways. Let's see, your questions, I will say, what is the underlying themes of these poems, and then what are some literary devices used in the poems. I think a lot of the students for the questions this week kind of I might not have described it very well. I might not have really pointed y'all in the right direction. So essentially, the reason I want you to include these questions after each poem, so two questions after each poem, is because we're not going to have the experience of being in a classroom together and being able to enter into discussions. We can do the online discussions. But I want these questions to function as a way for you to ask your writing group specifically for what it is you need from them. And also for me, what it is that you need from me in terms of feedback. So like, what are you wrestling with when when you are finished writing a poem? What are the things that you're just not quite sure if it worked well, or you are feeling a little lost, or you feel like, that's how I ended it, but that's not actually how I ended it. Does anybody have suggestions on different ways I could end this poem? So something really specific to the work that you're producing is what I'm looking for with these questions. So these are totally fine for this week, but just for the future, for future poems, I want you to use these questions as an opportunity to direct the feedback of your writing group, to very specifically offer what it is that you might need. So anyway, I'm going to end there, but thank you so much, Matthew. It's a pleasure to get to know your work a little bit. I'm very excited to read more of your work. Should you have any questions about this class or about this video feedback or anything at all having to do with the class, please feel free to reach out. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.